Welcome into the kitchen, family. Today I have a brunch like no other. I'm Paula with accompaniments, and today we're going to do a southern brunch theme that is not only about the food, and it is delicious, don't get me wrong, but also about creating memories. I'm going to share my tips on how to be the hostess with the mostest and how to get through a delicious brunch in a lot of easy steps. Today we're going to start with the pie because it takes the longest. So I would highly suggest this actually to make this the night before. One thing about hosting is that you want to make things easy as possible on yourself when it comes to the time to entertain. So for brunch, it's going to be early in the day. What you don't want to have to do is wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning in order to get your brunch ready. So anything you can make ahead is definitely a win. Now here with this pie crust, I've been testing some varieties over the past year, and grating the butter in has been the best in my opinion. So that's what I'm doing here. For me, it lets the butter go through all out and ends up having more layers in the crust. But of course, use whatever your favorite pie crust is here. You could even, again, to make this easier on yourself, use a store-bought pie crust. Now that the butter is in, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of ice water to get this process started. You could do this in your food processor also if you like. That would make this easy and convenient. But I'm just going to gently mix this until everything is incorporated and it all starts to come together. Now that I have this prepared, I'm just going to kind of let this rest. I like to shape it in a disc so that it's easy for me to roll out later on, but you don't really have to do this since it's actually going into a square pan this time. So here I have a 9 by 13 inch cake pan, and I have lined this with parchment paper. I've done an overhang on the side so that hopefully it will be easier to come out. And so now I'm going to go back to that pie crust that was waiting on us. And I'm just going to keep rolling this out to try to get this to a rectangle. It's perfectly fine if you don't get this part perfect. This is a very forgiving recipe since it is shaped into bars. You don't have to worry about a nice little edge on it at all. It's at the bottom of the bar. So just get it a good even layer and then get it into the pan. And what you'll see me do here is when I get into the pan, if there's any, I haven't gone all the way to the edge, I just kind of press this out with my fingers to get it to the edge of the pan. If you don't get it to the edge, all of the topping for your pie will kind of spill over, which will make it even harder to get out of the pan and also harder to cut. So that is my suggestion here. So I'm letting the pie crust pre-bake for about 10-15 minutes while I move on to my favorite biscuit recipe. I have done this so many times, I can literally do this recipe in my sleep. So it just starts with some flour, a little bit of sugar. I like to add just a little bit to balance the flavor, but it's really not that sweet. And you can omit this if you like. And then since I do have extra buttermilk from the pie that I'm making, I went ahead and added it too. Now, I normally do this with milk, but again, since I did have it, just another way to use up my ingredients. Don't worry about the ingredients again. I will add everything in the description nice for you. So this is very easy. Growing up, I had to learn how to do biscuits because I absolutely hate canned biscuits. That is one thing that I will not eat. So when I first started cooking from scratch, biscuits was one of the things that I wanted to try for my family. And we have been making this recipe for many years. And I'm so excited to be able to pass the recipe along to you. Now, I do this with softened butter. You could do this with half butter, half shortening if you like. I readily have butter available, and so that is one thing that I like to do. I like to cook with convenience for myself. I don't want to have to go searching for groceries every time I have a whim to do something. So I use butter because I don't always have shortening, but whatever your favorite biscuit recipe is, you could definitely do it. If you don't have a favorite, then try this and it could be your favorite. So what I do is I just kind of cut this in with either a whisk or a fork. Today I used a whisk. You don't have to use a pastry cutter if you don't have one, again, to make this easy on yourself. So I'm gently folding the ingredients into each other so that they all come in contact and touch. Try not to do this with the heavy hand, and that is easier said than done because I am heavy-handed. But now that everything is incorporated, we'll go ahead and again gently roll these out. Now I say gently because what we don't want is a tight, dense biscuit. So the less that you can work with this, the better. So I'm just going to gently put this out to the thickness that I prefer. This is completely up to you. You can have mile-high biscuits if you want, or really thin biscuits. That's the good thing about making it yourself. It's all to your preference. So it doesn't matter, even if you leave these kind of crumbly, it still comes out really good and really soft. I'm just going to knead it just a little bit for my liking, and then I'll get ready to roll these out. Now, I have biscuit cutters. This is something that I highly suggest keeping on hand if you are a biscuit maker, because they're just convenient. But I'm going to tell you, when I was growing up, my mom just used a cup. And for many years, while I was starting making biscuits myself, that's what I did. I'm fancy now, so I decided to upgrade. But the things that I do in the kitchen over and over again, I will invest in the tools for. I've mentioned here that I have a small kitchen and I feed a lot of people. I feed myself, my husband, and 6 children. So I try to make sure that I have tools that I actually use. Now, moving right along, I had started to put these in a pan and then realized that it was going to be too much space in this 9 by 13. And so I end up eventually moving these over to a round pan. Doing so just helps it puff up more. So that's another tip here on the biscuits. When you can get them to bake while touching each other, they will puff up a little bit more, but this is a preference. Do whatever you have and whatever you got. So got these together. The next thing I'm going to do is just put a little bit of butter on top, just so that we can get a golden crust on that. And this part is optional as well, but I usually do this. So I'm going to continue. Now, I am fighting the urge to do 3 and 4 batches of these biscuits, because that is exactly what I normally do to feed my large family. I usually try to cook something once and make a big batch of it. So you could freeze these and pull them out individually for breakfast, just to have as your own convenience foods. While the biscuits are baking, we'll get started on the pie filling. Now, this combines 2 of my favorite pies, a pecan pie and a buttermilk pie. I mention often that I'm not a big dessert person, but around the holidays, these are usually the 2 pies that I will eat. So, of course, combining those flavors makes it unique and absolutely delicious. So we'll start here with some eggs. And for those of you who are wondering, no, my chickens are still not laying. So I don't know. I'm starting to think they're going to be a part of the Christmas table. We'll see how it goes. So I got my sugar and some melted butter here. And then I have some corn syrup. So that's the part, of course, that makes it taste like a pecan pie. And then we're going to go ahead and give this a good mix after adding the buttermilk. And so I really like this. I like the convenience of putting this into bars, because it's kind of like a cute serving idea, and it's a good change up. And again, it does also make it easy, because I don't have to worry about making a beautiful edge on a pie, but you definitely could do both. I have wonderful memories about Texas pecans. Just growing up at my grandmother's house, she still has a lot of pecan trees in the yard. And we would just sit around the holidays in her kitchen and break open pecans. And sometimes they had worms in it and sometimes they didn't, but that's just the way it is. So here's that cooled pie crust. I'm going to go ahead and get the filling in here and get this baked off. And again, I do suggest doing this the night before, because it takes a little bit for it to set. We're going to move right along to the biscuits and gravy. Now, the men in my family, my husband and my oldest son, ask for this all the time. So, of course, I had to perfect a recipe. Now, I'm going to do this ahead of time as well. This can hang out in the fridge and be reheated and still taste just as delicious. So now that the sausage is browned, and I'm just using breakfast sausage here, I'll go ahead and get some flour in and get this completely coated, get all of the sausage completely coated in the flour, so that it makes it easier on the gravy part and that there are no lumps. Okay, once the milk goes in, I'm going to bring the temperature up a little bit higher, just continuing to stir this around and scraping the bottom, making sure it doesn't stick to the bottom, but making sure everything is incorporated and it thickens up. Now, I do like to season mine lightly here. I don't add a lot of seasoning, but that's completely up to you. I just do a little salt and pepper and just a touch of garlic powder. Now that that's thickened up, that I'm going to set it to the side and it's ready to go. I also have those biscuits that are golden and beautiful and ready for us as well. Now moving along to one of the dishes that I suggest making the day of, which is the sweet potato hash. I have so many sweet potato hash recipes because we absolutely love it. It's a good change and really healthy for breakfast as well. This one is really simple. I'm sauteing some onions here, some garlic, getting some aromatics in, and then we'll go ahead and get in the sweet potatoes. Now the sweet potatoes and your vegetables can be chopped ahead of time, which can make this easy to put together in the morning of your brunch. But actually cooking it, I would wait until maybe 20-30 minutes before your guests arrive. It is served warm if you like, but also even serving it at room temperature is still flavorful and delicious. Now that that's cooked down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and get the aromatics in. So today I have some red and green bell pepper. I like it for flavor, but also the colors are vibrant and beautiful. And that is another thing that makes this brunch really appetizing. All of the different colors, textures, and flavors coming together. Now, I did mention that I like to season this particular hash very simple. I just have some salt and pepper. I'm also going to add a little bit of paprika for color and just a little bit of cayenne for kick. But you could go crazy here. You could do Southwest flavors. You could do some cinnamon if you want, a little bit of nutmeg. You really could make this your own. Now, moving along to this fall-inspired fruit salad. This is one of the things that I like to do in brunch. I like to have some lighter dishes too, just in case any of your friends or family members are watching their diets. It is a good option to have something for everyone. This is light, it's delicious, it's crisp, and you can change the flavors out depending on the season. Now today I have apples and pears because that is what is in season. I'm going to get a little bit of lemon zest in here to brighten up those flavors. Also, I did mention that you can switch out ingredients depending on the season. You could do things like cranberries in here. That would be really delicious as well. And then later on in the season, you could add things like pineapple or mango. That would be delicious as well. Now today I have some red grapes. That's easy for me to find even in fall and winter here in Texas. I'm going to do some maple syrup. It's a deep flavor and it tastes delicious with this fruit salad, but you could also use honey here. I got a little bit of cinnamon, and then I have some Greek yogurt. This is delicious. It's creamy. And again, this is going to be healthy. Kids and adults like this one for sure. Now I'm going to give this a good mix, and you could just leave it at this point and let it hang out until your guests are about to arrive or you're ready to serve it. But what I like to do is add a little bit of crunch here as well. Now here's the favorite part of this brunch for me today. This is going to be the start of our Eggs Benedict. I have an easy way to make the eggs, and you could stand over the stove and poach eggs if you like, but when making things for a crowd, this is just a lot easier. It's actually something that I do for my family for breakfast sandwiches as well. So I have this muffin liner. I have it already sprayed with cooking spray. I'm going to get my eggs in here and bake this off. This is easy, convenient, and delicious. Now this part is completely optional, but I hate bland food, so I'm going to add just a little bit of salt to make sure that every layer of this breakfast sandwich is delicious. Now to move on to this easy hollandaise sauce, I'm going to do it in my blender. It makes it easy and clean up easy as well. So it starts with egg yolk and then some lemon juice, of course. And here's my little Cajun flair with just a little bit of Cajun seasoning. Here's some butter, and then I'm going to give this a blend. That is it. It's absolutely delicious, and it's easy. I'll show you exactly how I assemble it. Now here I toasted up an English muffin, and I have thinly sliced andouille sausage that I browned. I add that egg on top, and then a nice drizzle of that hollandaise sauce, and that is how it's served. Now here is the best part of any brunch. It is cocktail time, and today I have a Southern elegance cocktail your friends are going to love. It starts with peach juice, but you could use peach nectar as well. And then I have Grand Marnier, but you could use triple sec if you wanted to, whatever your preference is. Now, in the best part of this, what your friends are going to thank you for is an entire bottle of sparkling wine. I like Prosecco, but use whatever your favorite is. And yes, an entire bottle goes in, so you don't have to constantly keep reserving different drinks. You put the entire thing in a pitcher and you are ready to go. Now I'm going to give this a gentle stir and then add the last part of this, which is completely optional, but it gives a little color, and that is a splash of cranberry juice. Today, I'm going to garnish this with some frozen peaches and then get my cocktail on top, but you could use ice if you wanted to. And look how amazing this is on my fall brunch table. You could definitely switch this out between Christmas, winter, whatever your preference. This is a Southern, elegant, beautiful, delicious brunch spread that I hope you and your family enjoy.